Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to KUAM News Extra. With the opening ceremonies done today, really begins all the cultural sharing and learning that will take place over the next 2 weeks. And joining us in studio now is Thelma Hechanova and Vince Diaz. They are part of the Diaspora delegation and here to talk about what they're going to be doing on Guam over the next 2 weeks during FestPac. So Thelma, tell me about the delegation. I know the Guam delegation is 500 strong, right? So tell me how many people are returning to Guam or have returned.
Actually, we had 89 delegates that were ratified, and 64 of them are physically here to be able to participate.
And what are some of the disciplines that they're participating in?
We've got forums, workshops, and seminars. We've got 3 people there. We've got a bunch of performing arts dance. There's 27 of them. Jams houses, 7. We're actually fulfilling all of the different disciplines. We just have a sprinkling of people in each, and everybody's super, super excited to be here. We've got about 20 delegates that have never set foot in Guam until now.
Have you had a chance to get their feedback on what they thought? I mean, the opening ceremonies was last night.
They're just overwhelmed. They're just overwhelmed. There's a lot of tearing that happens. They're really just grateful to be here. Among all of the other delegates, it's such an honor for them. And as you probably know, everybody had to pay their fare here. So this is a phenomenal experience for all of them.
And Vince, you're here. You actually, both of you have lived on Guam before. And Vince, you've been really active in the seafaring, perpetuating our seafaring traditions. You're now at the University of Minnesota. I know, University of Minnesota. Tell me about, I guess, your role and what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so before I say that, I think I wanted to highlight that the idea of diaspora, people have been hearing it, but that's not part of our daily vocabulary, the term diaspora. Diaspora means dispersal. And when you think about dispersal, you think about people who are away from their homeland. But in our case, it was diaspora that allowed people to end up in homelands like Guam, Samoa, Tonga. And what made that possible was the development of a very sophisticated and advanced seafaring system. And what that allowed was actually a long, long, long history of people coming and going. So we've lived on Guam. In our diaspora group, we have people who range from having been born and raised out there and are here for the first time, to a lot of us who come back and forth every year. And so Guam, I live in Minneapolis, but Guam is very much part of my everyday thing there. And because I have a canoe there too, and I teach traditional watercraft with Indians up there in the Pacific, what we're doing today is actually a continuation of what I do here. So that said, the canoe stuff is without sliding the other genres and disciplines in FestPac, right? Canoes plays a really central role in not just our process, but in the story of Pacific Islanders. So you saw, for example, 19 canoes. This island hasn't seen that in 300 years. But in 300 years, people have continued to come and go. Well, across the Pacific, indebted to the traditions in the Central Carolines, there's been a remarkable revival of seafaring. And we've seen that in other FestPacs, and we've seen it, we're seeing it here. We have really strong participation from across Micronesia, but also from Melanesia and Polynesia. Daily demonstrations, there's going to be a couple of sails over to Malesso, so people will be able to see Friday and Saturday the fleets of canoes sailing from Ipao down to the south and back. But on top of that, UNESCO, for example, realized the presence of seafarers here and put money into putting together a large canoe summit that's going to happen this week, where we have at least almost 30 navigators, canoe builders, and support leaders from across the Pacific convening to talk about the next step in preservation and advancement of seafaring.
What would you say is the next step?
Well, the next step, I think, is to assess the different needs of all of the islands in the 21st century. In some islands, like New Zealand and Hawaii, they have very strong technical support, a lot of money that can, and it shows in the seafaring stuff that they're doing. The Hawaiians are sailing around the world. The Maoris have been involved with sailing all over the Pacific. But we have islands in Micronesia where the tradition is the strongest. They're facing, for example, rising sea level that is threatening their not only their islands, but very possibly the survival of that tradition, which is tragic because the recovery, the revival was made possible by the survival of that tradition there. And so when the Sarawalis and Polowatis have to move out of their islands, and we don't know how long that's going to last, we don't know if that seafaring tradition is going to begin, going to continue. What will be their seafaring needs when they're all living in Hawaii, Guam? So in their diaspora now. So there's new challenges to seafaring in the 21st century that we want to assess.
And when again is that UNESCO?
That will be this Thursday, the 26th, and then the sails will be the 27th and 28th.
Okay, thank you so much. Thelma, any final comments you wanted to make?
No, well, yes. We're just extremely grateful for the reception that we've received from everybody. I mean, everyone has always been, of course, very warm. I knew that. But just coming in, I can't tell you just how gratified everybody is about how we've been treated and how everyone is just absolutely exercising that Chamorro hospitality.
Yeah. And you know, we actually reached out to Mr. Punzalan for the Faces of the Faces of the Chamorro Diaspora on Facebook, and so we've been featuring them on Istoriata. So thank you guys for coming, being back on Guam. Welcome home. And for more information about FestPac, the schedules for the different programs and other cultural events, you can download the app for iOS and Android. Stay tuned. We're back with more after this.